Hello, welcome to the Analyst Inside Cricket with me, Simon Hughes.
And me, Simon Mann.
Has your heart rate recovered, Simon? I mean, that was just nerve-tingling. 50 minutes cricket that had everything, and I'm not sure my heart rate's come down, except in your case, of course, you'll be gloating now. Because you did predict a 2-2 scoreline at the beginning, and although it was shaky for quite a long time, it's been proved to be correct, and I was wrong having said 3-1 England.
Well, it's a bit of a mug's game, isn't it, predicting anything to do with sport, but I just felt at the start of the series that people underestimated how much quality India had in their team, in their squad, and also I just wondered where all the wickets were going to come from for England. I thought it was going to be a hard slog for them, and it proved that at times. And just on this game, I was quite categorical from fairly early on in the match. Actually, after Chris Woakes walked off, I thought that was a decisive moment in the game, and England would find that really difficult to cope with. Look, they got so close. It could have gone either way. But it shows you chasing 374 is not an easy thing to do. Pressure builds, as it did today, and ultimately just that pressure and the quality of India's bowling today was just about enough.
I have to hand it to a couple of Indian fans, actually. I was walking in with to the Oval this morning, and I said, who do you think is going to win? I suppose you think India. And they went, oh yes, 3 wickets is no problem. I said, what, Woakes is going to bat? And they went, well, still even 4 wickets. And I mean, Woakes coming into bat, that is the sort of final icing on the cake of this extraordinary game, because it did have so many different aspects to it. Great bowling, terrible bowling, wild bowling, fantastic batting, madcap batting, fielding, brilliance on the boundary, fielding where he goes over the rope and catches the 6 and then gives a 6 away, drop catches, and the final thing, a batsman with a broken shoulder, a dislocated shoulder, coming out to bat with what looked like looked like he was pregnant, actually, didn't it? Because the sling was under his jumper. Amazing bravery for Chris Woakes
to run a two.
Yeah, to run a 2, and he was obviously in total agony and debating whether to bat left-handed or right-handed. He was going to.
We don't know, do we?
No, we don't. I mean, thank goodness he didn't have to do it. But thinking about whether he would try and shape up with his right hand and sort of try and bat round the left-handed way with his right hand, which is probably what he was going to do. The Indians, their tenacity, their consistency, their stamina. Mohammad Siraj, kept going last night and today, and then producing that final wicket of Gus Atkinson. The crowd, I was sat in the crowd. I'll play the last moment actually, because it was incredible. And so, just hear the noise and the excitement and the exhilaration of the crowd when India finally got that last wicket was something else.
Yeah, it was a spellbinding 55 minutes, because it swung one way, the 2 fours off the first 2 balls. You thought, 27 to win, England got this surely. And then the wicket of Jamie Smith, I thought he looked tentative, a bit nervous. I mean, it must have been a difficult night for him, just thinking about all those permutations. I mean, I woke up in the middle of the night, I went through all the permutations as well. So I was just watching the game, commentating. Goodness knows what it was like to actually be playing, to be the not-out batter, and also not just him, but also those to come as well, the likes of Gus Atkinson, who I thought played actually pretty well, and Josh Chung, who tried to stick it out as well, and then obviously Chris Woakes. So it went one way, and then that wicket of Jamie Smith. Once Jamie Overton was out, I thought England not going to win this. I thought it was over. I sensed that India had the game, and actually it got a little bit closer than I thought. And they were at one stage, of course, if you think about it, before that last dismissal, England were 1 hit away from winning the series.
Yes, yeah.
Because if Atkinson had hit one over the rope, as he did earlier, then England would have drawn level, at least tied the match, and therefore won the series. So that is how close they were from winning the series. They were 1 hit away from winning the series. But it's a bit of a zero-sum game, isn't it? If it's 2-2 rather than 3-1, and there would be those people who say, actually, that kind of summed up the series. It was a tight, tough arm wrestle throughout. I think if England had won this game, if they chased 3-7-4, you'd say, yeah, fair play. I mean, that's a fantastic chase in these conditions on this surface, because even though it did flatten out a bit, or a reasonable amount, there was still enough in the pitch, wasn't there, for the bowlers to work with.
I've lost count of the number of times you said it was an arm wrestle, but two moments today actually that sort of underlined how close it was. One was Atkinson came out to bat, and his first ball he edged, and KL Rahul almost took the catch, but he just almost yorked him, so he didn't quite get his hands underneath it, and Atkinson survived. And then the LBW to Jamie Overton, which was given out, and of course Overton reviewed, and it was just glancing leg stump, so it was umpire's call.
What did you think about that?
I thought, funnily enough, I think if I'd been the umpire, I would have given that out, because he stepped across his stumps. It was a full delivery. He was on the crease. I would have given that out. But the review said it was only glancing, and sadly, that doesn't seem fair in a way to the batter. But this is these fine margins that you're operating in.
Yeah, well, we've talked about the arm wrestle. We talked about fine margins as well. I mean, that was one of the finest of margins, wasn't it? I mean, it was a bizarre wicket, because Overton was already at the non-striker's end when Kumar Dharmasena gave it out. He thought and he thought and he thought and he thought and he thought again, and then raised the finger. I don't think I can ever remember an LBW decision that took so long to give, and it was so tight. And if some buts, if you hadn't given it, who knows. The other things, well, just some other small things that can happen as well. There was another LBW that was given against Josh Chung, and they went through for a run, and of course, when it was overturned, England lose the run. I mean, ultimately it didn't make that much difference, or any difference you could say, except that Atkinson would have been on strike for the next few balls. So there was that to throw in the pot as well. It's one of cricket's ridiculous rules, laws or whatever, that it's a dead ball if an umpire gives it LBW, even though you've got the review process. Of course, in the old days, you give it out, it's out. Whereas these days, if you give it out, it's not necessarily out, and you can lose the runs. And there have been examples where the ball's gone off the pad down to the boundary for 4 runs. It happened actually in the T20 World Cup, the last T20 World Cup, and it was ultimately decisive in that match. So I think, again, that's a regulation or a law that needs looking at. They need to come up with something better than that. It doesn't influence the game very often, but every now and again it can have an impact. So England lost a legitimate run because of an umpiring error, because it was not out on review. But there we go. The margin in the end was
6 runs,
was 6 runs.
That's India's closest ever Test victory, and I think it's on a par with that great Edgbaston Test match of 2005, which we're reviewing on this site over the next few days. And if you go to our Substack blog, the Crickverse, the next episode, the Edgbaston Test match, which began on this very day 20 years ago, 4th of August, if you go to the Crickverse, you'll see that episode up tomorrow, the Edgbaston Test, which we're calling the greatest test, but I mean, this was close.
Absolutely. I mean, a brilliant test match, fantastic series. Another thing today, Yoz, just attack from a tactical point of view. What did you think of Shubman Gill's decision not to bring the field in to try and make sure that Chris Woakes was on strike for the start of the next over? There was a couple of occasions where England took singles off the last ball of the over with the field back. There was one where Atkinson just pushed it and took the single, and they ran through, no trouble at all. And he thought, hold on, I know you don't want to give boundaries away, and Atkinson might try and hit a 4 or a 6, but India had some runs to play with, so they would definitely get to bowl at Chris Woakes. And you think, well, a guy with one hand, you can't get a guy with one hand out in one or two balls, then what are you doing out there?
I thought that. Yeah, I mean, it was a difficult decision. I can see that. I can see he could have brought the field in, and I probably would have done. What I did think they got wrong, India, was they shouldn't have bowled full to Gus Atkinson. They should have bowled short, and because he wouldn't have been able to run through for a bye quite so easily. And the keeper could easily have stood up to the stumps. He must have thought, there's a danger here that they're going to run through for a bye if I stand up to the stumps. And actually, Dhruv Jurel didn't seem to be that aware of the fact of the prospect that they might run through for a bye off the last ball, and so he was a bit slow reacting to it. They should have bowled a bouncer, which in that over when Gus Atkinson managed to get a single pushed back up the wicket, he should have bowled a bouncer that over. The over before, Dhruv Jurel should have been a bit more aware they were going to run a bye. Yeah,
he bowled it quite. I thought it was actually quite a good ball because he bowled it quite wide, didn't he? I mean, that was fine, I thought. But the other one, it was just like in the slot just to push into the onside for an easy single. When you've got a guy like Chris Woakes who can barely run because of the pain in his shoulder, you want to make it as difficult as possible to get that single. And I thought on that second occasion, it wasn't like that. And what it meant was that Atkinson was on strike. And England were literally one strike away from winning the series, because if he had not went over the rope, okay, it's a bit of a long shot. He was going for it. It was a fine ball, actually, wasn't it, from Siraj? Another excellent full-length delivery right up in the block hole to knock him over. Atkinson played well, showed he's got something about him, both with ball in this match and with the bat as well. But it's so tantalising, isn't it? And also, I actually feel a real sense of anticlimax now that the series is over. Whoever won this game, it's funny, isn't it? You get to the end of this incredible series where you don't know who's going to win it throughout. It really is a tug of war or a scrummage. There you are, you see, gone away from arm wrestle.
What was that phrase you came up with yesterday about the Welsh? And the Hoyle?
Yeah, get the Hoyle going, yeah.
Well, the Indians did.
They did, yeah. And they were inspired by the number of fans turned up today as well. I mean, it looked like 2/3, 1/3 today in terms of support in favour of India, because what you noticed at the end when they were celebrating, there were so many people still in the ground, and they looked like Indian support, and there was a huge amount of noise. And why not? Why wouldn't you turn up for an hour's cricket today? It was exhilarating. It did not disappoint, did it? I mean, you could have had a situation where England just kind of like knocked them off and won by 4 wickets.
I thought that's what would happen. Yeah. I thought, I completely got it wrong. I admit it, but I thought the roller, the heavy roller, which we didn't mention last night actually, I thought the heavy roller would have a big influence, and it would deaden any movement off the pitch for the first half hour, and England would get the runs. They'd find it quite easy. Anything but. The ball did all sorts. It was swinging, hooping all over the place, and the batters couldn't lay a bat on it. The bowlers bowled superbly, and the wickets sort of crumbled away, and it was anything but. And the roller had no effect. And of course, they didn't take the second new ball, and that was also a wise move, because that old ball was going round corners.
Yeah, well, that was a decision to take, wasn't it, today for Shubman Gill. Yeah. Last night, you felt, no, don't take it, because the ball's quite soft, it is swinging, it's doing something. In England, not going anywhere. Today, you thought, well, he might have a decision to make with that new ball. Ultimately, they didn't take it. It was the right decision. I suppose when you get a wicket or two early, like they did with the old ball, you think, yeah, just keep it going. But look, the new ball might finish them off as well, mightn't it? But then the problem with the new balls, we know, it can be difficult to face, but it can just fly off the bat, and that was what he was worried about. I mean, it must have been. I'm just trying to think what it must have been like for the players last night, through the night. Shubman Gill himself, he's very calm. I spoke to him afterwards. Obviously, when you win, there's a certain amount of,
zen-like.
Yeah, but he, I suppose that's why he's such a good batter as well, isn't it? Because he can shut out all the noise. He can stay calm. But it is something to be captain of the Indian Test team at the age in which he is, especially when he's probably not necessarily the first choice as well. But to come here with this team and draw 2-2 against England, who've got some. We'll talk about that in our Betfair exchange in a short while, about where they are going to Australia. And they've got some things in the right place, England, lots of things in the right place, but there's a few issues that they've got with their team, and I suppose especially in this match, they've come with a bit of a scratch bowling attack, and ultimately they've been taken down. But wonderful. I mean, they've got some talented players, India, and you think, we've talked about this before on this podcast, haven't we? Is this going to be the Indian sort of generation? It's been we know that Australia have dominated Test cricket, haven't they, largely speaking, for 130, 40 years, but are India in the end going to sort of take over that mantle? Well, they give it a good go, don't they?
Yeah, and you said right at the start, actually, they're going to be a tough team to beat, and they were, and they won the 2 matches they won. Well, without Jasprit Bumrah, I feel that the one area they need to focus on is more pace bowlers, because those 3 pace bowlers in this match, they did well. Siraj is absolutely fantastic, a Trojan. The others, Krishnan, decent. Akashdeep will bowl well in certain conditions, but I think they need a couple more, a bit like England. They need somebody tall who can hit the bat hard, and they surely must have the resources to find 2 or 3 more really top fast bowlers. That's what made the West Indies such an incredible team in the 1980s, and obviously with Australia in the 90s and 2000s. I mean, they had Glenn McGrath, Jason Gillespie, Brett Lee and others, and of course Shane Warne, which made them. So you need to be a truly dominant team. You need
to win away, especially as well.
Yeah,
because they're good at home generally, aren't they?
Yes, you need a good all-round bowling attack. They've got Kuldeep Yadav, obviously, as an excellent spinner. They don't seem to have. Jadeja didn't have that much impact in this series, and neither did Washington Sundar. Took a few wickets, but you wouldn't consider him as a sort of frontline spinner, really. He's more of an all-rounder. So I think their bowling attack might just need a bit of strengthening to take a bit of the pressure off Bumrah, actually, and Siraj.
Yeah, I suppose it's a question of how much Bumrah is going to be able to play in the future, whether they're going to have to manage him, whether he's going to have that, because you want him to play in all 3 formats. He's an all 3 formats type player. He's not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to manage his workload, and you do worry and wonder about his future going into his 30s, whether he's going to be able to play that much for India, say in Test cricket. Is he going to be able to play series after series after series? Look, all teams want a battery of fast bowlers, don't they? In England, are going to Australia. They'd love to have 7 or 8 options, I think, for that series, who can come in, slot in when they need them, just to mix and match. Perhaps that's an ideal world. You're never going to have 6, 7, 8 high quality fast bowlers, although having said that, of course, one team did have that in the 1980s, wasn't it? And West Indies had they had about a dozen, didn't they, that they could have played. You think of someone like Wayne Daniel, only played 10 test matches.
Sylvester Clarke played here for years and hardly played any test matches.
Yeah, so they did have that, whereas it's not easy to find that, mainly because it's damn hard bowling pace, isn't it, with the way they bat these days? Like of Harry Brook out there slamming you around everywhere, and T20 getting smashed everywhere.
It was lovely actually hearing Harry Brook at the end there when Michael Atherton asked him on Sky about that shot and did he regret playing that shot where he lost his bat and got caught. And he said, well, in hindsight, I probably wish I hadn't played that shot. Yeah. But, hindsight's a lovely thing, as he admitted. Yeah,
that's what he said to me as well, because I spoke to him for BBC television.
He's a great lad, isn't he?
He must have been sitting there thinking this morning. It's human nature, isn't it? Look, India were on their knees, weren't they? 70 odd to win, 7 wickets left. Brook and Root were doing whatever they pleased, basically, and England somehow lost that match. And his shot selection did influence that. I said to him, Harry, there'll be people who are saying, go on, Harry, just knock it for one. Just knock it for one. And he said, well, yeah, I hindsight and all that, what you just said there. But he must have been thinking about that. If I could have done that moment again, I would have just knocked it for one. Because there were times when he was knocking it for one, wasn't he? He just hit 2 fours. But as we said last night on the podcast, with that brilliance that he's got, with that way of playing, that aggressive way, for the start, he got England back in the game. But you're also, it's what comes with it, isn't it? It's what comes with it. Although, Joe Root he was playing all those ramps, wasn't he, and all that sort of stuff before. But he's cut all that out mainly now, isn't he? Just like hard-headed ruthlessness. And I wonder for Brook to go another level up, which he's capable of, because he's such a talented player. And I wonder whether that is the next step for him to introduce into his game.
Well, that's what comes from sort of maturity.
Well, and that's what Joe Root was saying last night. He said, how do you keep churning them out? He said, it's experience. I know what works, and I just have this process.
But I suppose, you want to keep the fun of cricket as well, don't you?
Totally.
And Joe is an incredible player, and I'm sure he does have fun, but there's a sort of duty of responsibility as well in the way that he bats, whereas Harry is still there expressing himself, kind of almost exploring the art of batting.
He's still a bar emptier, isn't he, Harry Brook?
Yeah, no, he is, but he looks as if he's enjoying himself. I'm not saying that Joe Root is doing a job and feels like he's doing a job, but he sort of bats as if he's almost on automatic pilot, whereas Harry is still trying to find his way. He's more of a sort of Picasso artist who's splashing the paint around on the canvas and seeing what will come out of it, and in the end he'll find the most consistent route, but it might not be as much fun.
No, I suppose that's the question, isn't it? What will he find ultimately most rewarding? Will it be just batting in that exuberant way, or will it be just churning out 100 after 100 and making sure the team win? England missed an opportunity to win here. Let's not beat around the bush. They missed an opportunity to win. They were out of the game. They got themselves right back in the game. 195 run partnership, and they probably go away from the Oval thinking we should have won that match. We had India down, but we did not give them the final kicking, really, did they? They kind of let them off the hook. They let them back into the game. There was the Brook shot. There was the Bethel shot. We stand here with India having won the game by 6 runs. Made for just the most pulsating cricket. Like you, my heart was pumping away. It was just so engrossing, wasn't it? With the drama, all the twists and turns, and the Chris Woakes coming out to bat at the end there. I suppose one thing it did miss was actually just watching Chris Woakes bat for a ball. I don't think he would have particularly liked that. He was so much pain, wasn't he? It was horrible to see.
I mean, I can just imagine. I remember breaking my collarbone myself, which isn't as bad as a dislocated shoulder, and the pain, even just lying on one side, is agony for a few weeks. So, poor guy. I'm sure he was absolutely dosed up, but still, it doesn't help. So, listen, it's 2-2 in the end, and India totally deserved that. Actually, it was a fair result, absolutely. So, I'll give you your money. 2-2. And we shall leave you. You can watch this podcast on video, by the way. If you're not watching on video, you can watch it on video on the Analyst YouTube channel. And we'll leave you with just a shot, my favourite shot of the summer, actually, which is of the little boy, Will Main, who repaired Harry Brooks' bats last year, having put an ad on Instagram and asked for people who wanted their bats to be repaired to come forward, and Harry did with 6 bats, and this 13-year-old kid mended all of them. One of them he was using for his 100 yesterday, so that's a fantastic image to finish with. And after the break we're going to talk Ashes and England's prospects. So this is our Betfair exchange, and we're going to look ahead to the Ashes. This, of course, was the last test that England play before the Ashes. And Betfair currently has the Ashes odds as Australia 61% chance of winning, England 31%, and a 10% the series to be drawn. So you spoke to Ben Stokes after the game, Simon. He seems to think that England are in quite good shape.
Yeah, he said we're in good shape. Yeah, we're confident. We kind of know what we're doing. I suppose the one thing you would say is that they never in this series had their Ashes bowling attack on the field at the same time. So I'm thinking that might be something like Atkinson, Carse, Stokes, Archer. Yeah. So they didn't have those 4 together, and that looks a decent attack to go to Perth for the first Test match. There's Mark Wood in the background as well. And they've also got Josh Tongue and then a few others. I mean, Overton played in this game, for example, and then there might be 1 or 2 others. And there'll be a few knocking around as well, because England Lions are out there and they're playing a practice match against the Lions in the warm-up for that first Test match. So they'll have some bowling options. But those four pace bowlers, they didn't get them on the field together this summer. So that's one thing you can say. And if they could, then they might be able to cause some problems. Interesting, those odds actually. England like a third chance of winning, around about 30%. I reckon that's probably better than
a lot of other series in the past.
Yeah, exactly. I
maybe even might stop Glenn McGrath saying 5-0.
No, it won't. No, because Den's logic, and it is good logic as well, is that he always assumes every time Australia play a Test match against England, they will win. Therefore, they're playing 5 Test matches, so therefore they will win them all. And look, to be fair to him as well, he's been pretty close, hasn't he? The last few home series in Australia, England found it really difficult. And I think I've said to you before, we'll preview the Ashes a few more times, but we're kind of at the end of the summer. But I've said to you before that the challenge for England, okay, obviously to try to win, but actually to go and compete. They haven't competed in Australia for a long time. We haven't had a tight Test match like this or anything close to this. So I would say from this distance, England are well placed to make it competitive. Whether they're well placed to win, I'm pretty sceptical at the moment. It depends on who's going to be fit for Australia as well. Oh, of course, it's going to depend on who's fit for either side close to the Ashes. But so we'll get a much better feel, obviously, in November, moving towards that first Test match, who's fit and all that sort of stuff. But at the moment, England are in a reasonable place, but they've still got some issues, haven't they?
The jigsaw to fit in. So McCullum says he thinks Mark Wood will be fit by then. I guess they're sort of fingers crossed. Stokes says he's going to be fit, so he'll be okay. Woakes we can pretty much discount, I think. They're going to need to rotate their attack at the moment in the World Test Championship, which of course this series was the first series for England. Australia on top, and Sri Lanka are second. India have gone to third after this victory today, and England are fourth. I mean, is that a measure of strength? I mean, Sri Lanka should probably not be second, I guess. But
it's very early days, isn't it?
It's early days. It's early days. But I suppose England, the things they have to think about are: do they stick with the opening pair, Crawley and Duckett? So Duckett's had a great series, 462 runs at 51, excellent. But Zach Crawley, 290 runs at 32. about par for his performances.
There is no way that Zach Crawley is not going to play in the first Test match. Okay, he's going to play in the first.
No, I agree.
Unless he gets injured. That's the only way he's not going to play in the first Test match. It's as simple as that.
I agree, and I can see the logic of that. They do work well as a pair. He can have his day out. What he doesn't do is when he's got a start, he doesn't very often kick on and make a big score. He gets a 60 or a 70, and that's why his average is 32 rather than 42, because he's got the ability to be higher, but he doesn't make torrents of runs like Root, because he gives the wicket away. He plays a dumb shot when he's on 62, as he did in this first innings here. So, but I agree, they work really well as a pair. So that's set in stone. Ollie Pope is the other one, of course. At the moment, a regular number 3 in this series, 306 runs at 34. So he's done again what his average said he would do. Nothing worse, nothing better. He's not kind of changed much in his method, but I suppose we know what to expect from him. Yeah, and
again, I'd say the same thing. There's no way Ollie Pope won't be batting number 3 for England in the first Test match. It'll be this top 7. With Stokes coming back for Bethel, as long as everyone's fit. That's how it will be, I'm sure. And we've seen it for a while. Actually, this has been basically England's settled top 7 for over a year now, and I don't see them changing that apart from injury. And the one other factor, of course, is the Jacob Bethel factor, which was that, there's a lot of people saying get Bethel in. Well, this Test match, they brought him in. It was probably a bit unfair because he's had so little cricket. It was a high pressure situation, and he failed a couple of times. So there's not going to be that same clamour, isn't there? Or Bethel at 3 instead of Ollie Pope. Ollie Pope would be better in this England side, batting at 5, really effective, I think, at number 5, but that's not going to happen because they haven't got a number 3, not at the moment anyway. So it'll just be, use what you've been using and preparing with. So that's your top 7, and then the others I think we've talked about in terms of the bowlers. I think so: Archer, Carse, Stokes, Atkinson, and then there's the spinner. So that's your 10, and then your 11 is Shoaib Bashir. Ricky Ponting saying that Shoaib Bashir is the best option for England in Australia. What did you make of that?
You could look at it two ways. You could say Ricky Ponting's trying to get England to pick Bashir because he thinks he's rubbish. But actually, I don't think Ricky would do that. I think he's not as sort of Machiavellian as that. I think he would be saying what he felt. He's got credibility as a commentator. Absolutely right. He's taking his job as a commentator very seriously. So I think he would think Bashir probably has got something to offer, and he has taken wickets in this series at around about 60, a cost of 60. But he has taken wickets. He probably won't have to bowl that much. Especially, he might not even play in Perth. I would like to see Rayan Ahmed given an opportunity. He's taken 13 wickets and scored 100 for Leicestershire in their last championship match. Obviously, he's not necessarily a very accurate bowler, and he's not a very stable batsman, but he's got all-round ability. He's played Test cricket before. He's someone who can produce a wicket-taking ball from somewhere. So I kind of quite like him as an option, but he'll probably be in Australia anyway with the Lions, so they don't necessarily have to name him in the squad.
No. Yeah,
it's a long way off. I think, as Harry Brooks said to you also, there's about 1,000 games of cricket to go until then anyway.
Well, I asked Ben Stokes about the Ashes, and he was happy to engage. So we're in a good place and that sort of thing. And I asked Harry Brook about it, and he said I got about 1,000 games before then, which is a bit of an exaggeration. We know what he means, 100, and he's the white ball captain as well. And they've got that white ball series in New Zealand, so there's a lot for them to think about. So I actually, in terms of the team for the first Test match, as long as everyone's fit, I don't actually think there's much debate almost about anybody. The Bashir, you might say Bashir, Rayan Ahmed. I don't know. That spinner option is there.
It's probably not going to happen, is it? They'll stick with their tried and tested.
Probably, unless they go to Perth and they look at the pitch and the conditions and they look at the stats and everything. They say, it's really a kind of like 5-seamer pitch. Just keep going with 5-seamers. I think this is the 5-seamer pitch. I really do. If Ben Stokes has been playing here, in this match. I think England probably would have won the game with 5 seamers, because they could just keep on rotating them. You can rest them a bit more, give them a bit more of a breather, just keep on going the whole time, is what Surrey do. And I wonder whether Perth is a bit like that as well. That might be an option, but I mean, Ben Stokes, he likes to have a spinner in a test match. The only other one you might say in terms of those sort of battery of pace bowlers, does Josh Tongue say get in ahead of Bryden Cass? What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I think it's an interesting one. It's not easy, and it may be something they have to decide closer to the time because of who's in form, who's looking fit, etc. I think Tongue offers something a bit different because he comes from that slightly awkward angle. I described him as slightly like Courtney Walsh, sort of over the top delivery style, sort of here, kind of 11 o'clock, and angling in and then swinging it away. And he does produce wicket-taking deliveries, as he proved in this test match. Cass is a workhorse, and he keeps going, and he's aggressive, and he bowls a heavy ball. He doesn't do that much with the ball. He swings it away, but to me, he doesn't look difficult to play. He doesn't have that sort of mystery, that kind of slight point.
More mystery.
I think Tongue's looks a little bit more awkward. Cass he hits the bat hard and he bowls at good pace and he keeps going, and he certainly won't let you down. And probably he's a bit more consistent than Tongue. But Tongue has that wicket-taking delivery in his armoury, and if you've got bowlers who can keep it tight, like Atkinson can, for instance, Atkinson's a very sort of consistent, repeatable bowler who can probably tie up an end, then and Archer's the same, then you could probably afford to have someone who's a bit more explosive, like Tongue.
Yeah, well, what you're probably going to find is that they'll both play at some point, won't they? So England need that stock. They need that selection options. They need the selection options to help them through because of the intensity. And we saw the intensity of this series. In the end, England came up with a makeshift attack for the final Test match. Or they came up with players who hadn't had that much cricket. You might say it wasn't such a makeshift attack if players have bowled a lot, like Atkinson, like Tongue, for example, and like Overton as well. If he'd had a lot more cricket, which he didn't have. So the key to lots of these things, it's not just form, but it's fitness, isn't it? Having all these blokes ready and able to go on the 21st of November, and we know we don't live in a perfect world, so someone will fall down between the cracks somewhere along the line, because it always happens. And I suppose the other thing is, will that happen to Australia as well? Will they find some injury issues along the way? And they've got problems with their batting. Their bowling lineup is pretty settled.
Just a final word on India, given that they've played such a huge part in this series. I mean, Shubman Gill as a leading run scorer, 654 runs at 75, absolutely fantastic.
754.
Sorry, shall I start that again? Yeah. Just a final word on India, as they played such a huge role in this fantastic series. Gill is the leading run scorer, the Indian captain, 754 runs at 75 average, which is fantastic. And KL Rahul also 532 at 49, did very well as an opener. Jadeja was their third highest run scorer with 516 at 86. England just couldn't get him out. So a vital influence from him. And Rishabh Pant, 479 at 68. Hopefully he'll recover from his broken foot in time. What a tough couple of years he's had with coming back from that car accident, and then now this broken foot as well. But the Indian batting certainly looks pretty strong. And KL Rahul sort of pushed up to open in this series when Rohit Sharma retired, has delivered. And he'll be proud of his work. Also, very good second slip, actually. So, that's someone they can really bank on. And Shubman Gill has been, as captain, to make that many runs. I think only Don Bradman has made more runs as captain in a Test series. So that's quite an elite pair to be part of, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think he's been helped by going down to number 4. That just relieves some of the pressure off him. Remember, early part of his career, he's basically an opener or a number 3. Down at number 4, new role, the Virat Kohli role, and he's fulfilled it superbly. The batters in this series have definitely been helped by pretty flat pitches, haven't they? And perhaps at times not the strongest bowling attacks that either team have put out. The fact that Bumrah's played 3 games, missed on 2, although of course India won a couple of them. But England's attack at times has just been a little bit makeshift, bit mix and match as well, with bowlers coming back from injury. They're being tried out. What you want, from England in the future is like teak tough, ready to go bowlers, don't you? That's be a bigger test. But yeah, I mean, fair play. What a brilliant series, absolutely fantastic series.
The only sad thing is it's now over, and it's the 4th of August.
The players won't be saying that. They'll be thinking, thank God for that, I can have a bit of a break.
But I mean, it seems odd, doesn't it? 4th of August. So the 2005 Ashes, which, as I say, we're reviewing in our podcast series, finished in mid-September. 12th or 13th September was the final test match here at the Oval. And you want something more to look forward to, don't you? But sadly, from a Test cricket point of view, we haven't.
Yeah, well, we've had 7 Test matches in England this summer, which is normal. It's about the limit, isn't it? What we normally have with the World Test Championship.
Do you think we want a bit more time between each one to savour the last and look forward to the next?
Well, we talked about this earlier in the Test match. Definitely, yeah. 3 days is not enough between Test matches. Look, all good things have to come to an end, Yoz. We can't keep on playing every Test match after Test match after Test match. There's the 100 to look forward to, and then the one-day series involving South Africa, the white ball series, and then the white ball series against New Zealand, and then the Ashes. It'll roll around pretty soon. Time goes quickly. I actually don't mind kind of like this midsummer Test series, because I think that because the weather gets less involved. The light, for example, we don't have the floodlights on the whole time, the ball's zipping around. So I actually don't mind that so much. I think it's worked quite well. Next year it is truncated again, it's split up, isn't it? Pakistan, the 3-match Pakistan series is August and September, so you'll have your wish. You'll have bad light in September.
We'll have Chris Woakes bowling off spin when the lights come on, and they say, the umpire saying it's too dark to bowl seamers. Oh God, please, no, please. But I suppose why Premier League is back shortly, and in a way, what Richard Thompson said on Test Match Special the other day when he was interviewed was June and July is cricket's opportunity for the nation to get engaged, because of the fact that Premier League is so dominant, football is so dominant, and so in a way he's right. Maybe it's not such a bad thing to have it all compressed into June and July, and then August football takes over in the 100, and we can kind of go on holiday to Greece.
Well, it's fair to say people engaged with this Test match and Test match series. It's been absolutely fabulous. I'm going for a lie down, Yoz. Yeah.
No, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
And we'll leave you with just a little clip from that amazing Edgbaston 2005 Test. As I say, you can watch and hear that series on this podcast platform. The 6-part series is coming up, and this is just a clip from that amazing Edgbaston Test match of 2005, and we'll be back later in the week with more cricket conversation. Thanks for listening.
Even the last ball of the day's play.
And hold him! How about that? Absolutely brilliant from Shane Warne.
One of the finest balls he's ever bowled. I mean, it wasn't quite the ball of the century.
Well, I was just saying, was it actually better than the ball of the century? I mean, it ripped straight across him, didn't it?
Yeah, it ripped straight across him. And I mean, Strauss played it badly, and he admits that. But Warne actually identifies it as almost as good as the ball of the century.
I just did him properly because he thought it was a straight one. And you could tell by the way he left it, he thought it was a straight one. And he just didn't pick it. So, and to spin it that far in the situation of the game, there was a lot to happen the next day, and that gave England something to think about, that this is what's in store for tomorrow, and I had to do something that night. So to be able to deliver that at that time when we were getting whacked around a bit too was pretty cool. And he was a good player, Straussy, too, so to knock him over like that was nice. Was Strauss a bunny like Cullinan? I think he might have been a bunny like Cullinan, actually.
As soon as it pitched and turned and I'd got my feet in a horrible place, and you heard the death rattle, and you kind of, as I was walking off, I was like, oh no, that is one of those deliveries, isn't it? Like, I'm that person that I've seen on, all those sort of Gatting ball replays and various others. I was like, this is going to be on that highlights reel.